Hey, Psych 2. Good morning. It is Tuesday, April 7th, and we're going to continue on with our study and look at psych disorders. Okay, so again, good morning. My thumbnail is the sun as it's out, which again, take advantage of that today. Get some sun since we obviously missed it yesterday. All right, but you need your psych disorder chart out, okay, which I've got my copy up here. And again, we've had 9 disorders on there, all right, starting from anxiety disorders, then going to somatoform and dissociative disorders. Okay, and yesterday we ended up with 8 and 9. Hopefully you're liking the videos as well that are on Canvas. Again, I posted the split video this morning and then also the video for today about mood disorders, which is actually from Crash Course Psychology, which is a great online resource on YouTube. They do a really good job of detail summarizing things in a few minutes. There's also a lot of good videos that I've spoken on depression and mood disorders, and some of them are in the minute form, so feel free to access any of those as well. The one I gave you is a little bit more detailed. Okay, all right. So today we're going to be doing number 10 and number 11. Okay, and this is called MDD, and again, I'll do a close-up. So we're going to be in mood disorders today. I'll put this down like that. So we're going to be talking about, there are many, and actually, I think in the DSM-5 now, this is categorized as depressive disorders. And then you have bipolar as kind of its own little section. Bipolar and other related disorders. So still classified as mood disorders though in general, but I think it's divided up into 2 parts in the DSM-5 where it has depressive disorders, of which there are many. We're just going to go over the big one. And then it splits, it has bipolar and other related disorders, okay, which are also a component of mood disorders. So the first one is MDD, which is major depressive disorder. All right, which is a mood disorder, okay? And this is major symptoms okay. I'll do number 11 down here. Okay, so major depressive disorder is the worst of the depressive disorders in the DSM-5. So again, we use depression kind of as a general term, but just know in the DSM-5 and in psychiatry and psychology and in the world of psych disorders, there are many different types of depression, many different levels, and they all have their own specific diagnosis criteria and symptoms. Basically, the difference is on the symptoms and how long they last and the severity of the symptoms, okay? So major depressive disorder is actually very similar to generalized anxiety disorder, and where people this is going to be their normal, most occurring state of mood is depression, okay? So they're going to have, that's just basically kind of who they are. So again, just like you and I are normal and we have a normal mood, and then there are times in which we kind of experience highs or lows from that mood, their normal state is really, really low. So you have, let's see if I can get this in here. You have in mood disorders. You have mania and you have depression. Okay. So, and mostly we're right here in the middle. Okay. So, and we're somewhere within a range. Okay. So we have depressed moments in which we slide down towards depression. And we also have periods of being very excited, very high, feeling very good. Okay. But we're right here. Okay. So this would be kind of the normal mood spectrum, if you will, where most people spend their time here. Not always exactly in the middle, but we have depression, depressed moods and moments, very excited, high experiences and moods. Okay. Major depression, though, they are down here all the time. Okay. And it's very rarely that they can actually kind of move up over here. Okay. So I'll show a close up of this here in a minute. Okay. So we have our two spectrums of the mood continuum. We have depression and we have mania, which are on the poles, which we'll talk about, which is how we get to bipolar. But major depressive people have a disorder in which they are always down here. This is their most displayed experience mood, is right here. Okay. So, you know, it kind of swaps from you and I experience normally throughout the day, or our experience, and that, you know, we'll be here. We'll be here, and then, you know, something bad happens, you know, we get bad news or bad experience, you know, we're going to kind of slip down here a little bit, but eventually we'll recover to here. And then if we get great news, something exciting happens, you know, we'll shift up to here, and then eventually we'll kind of go back. Okay. So we spend most of our existence right here. Major depressive people spend most of their existence down here. This is where they're just located. Biologically, psychologically, they are just down here. And it takes a lot of work, treatment, medication to get them inching back up towards here. Okay. So, again, I want to emphasize that depression, just like anxiety, is very physical and it's very mental. Okay. There are physical symptoms of depression. Okay. You physically hurt. You know, I when I was in counseling and therapy, and I think I've had students who have had both anxiety and depression, and they say depression is the one that they're most afraid of. It is the more nasty of the two. Not that anxiety is not nasty and uncomfortable and doesn't feel very well either, but overwhelmingly, just from experience, people who have experienced both, they are afraid of the depression. They do not like it at all, because, and the number one answer is that they just feel so sick. They feel so down. Their body aches. It's very lethargic. Their mind hurts. There's pain in the mind and in the brain with depression. So it is very biological and very physical. Okay, so we're going to put biological on this one. All right, because this one deals with, if you watch the video, neurotransmitters, deficit of certain neurotransmitters, so neurochemical balances in the brain. Now, there can be environmental causes for depression, but really generally not major depressive disorder. If I lose a loved one in my family, or my dog passes or whatever, you know, I'm probably going to slip down into a depressed state for a brief period, but I will recover up. Okay, so it's more like it's depression, like a mental illness. You know, it's just transient. It's very short. The environment can explain it. Okay, but I'll come back up. Major depressive disorder, it doesn't matter if they get good news or bad news. They are just down here. And that's just kind of where their existence is and where it lives, is down in this depressive state. And physically and mentally, they're just down there the whole time. Okay. Okay, so let me back up here. Okay, and I'll go down. Okay, so major depressive disorder, all right, is a mood disorder and is considered one of the depressive disorders. We would probably say it's probably the most severe of the depressive disorders, okay, because basically it's severity of symptoms and the length of time that you have it. Okay. And then the symptoms are major, long-lasting depression symptoms. Depression is most displayed experience mood, okay? and then you've got your mood spectrum down there. It's biological and it's neurotic. Okay. Now it's neurotic. It mainly has a neurotic component because anxiety and depression are very, very closely related. They actually deal with the majority of the same neurotransmitters in your brain. So serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine. Okay. So they are very, very related. And sometimes, actually, again, when we talk about treatments, you'll see that actually anxiety treatments are used for depression, and depression treatments are used for anxiety, mainly in the medication. With our anti-anxiety or antidepressive medications can be used for both depression and anxiety. So, and most people will tell you that if they have depression or anxiety, that generally they have periods of kind of both. So if I'm anxious all the time and anxiety is my main issue, I will have periods of depression, most likely. If I'm depressed, I will have periods of anxiety, most likely. Now, that's not going to be the mainstay, but I do experience it, which is why we're going to put neurotic there. Okay. Right. Okay. So that's major depressive disorder. And the Crash Course Psychology number 30, which is on Canvas link, does a really good job of explaining that. Okay. All right. Number 11, which is the second mood disorder one. So I guess I could do this. It would help us here. Okay, is bipolar. Okay, now again, the mood disorder section in the DSM-5 is divided into two parts. So you have depressive disorders, and then you have bipolar and other related disorders. And we'll talk about how this one's pretty distinctly different. Okay, okay, this is a mood disorder classification. But what happens is I have mania and depression. Okay, alternating. And this one would be psychotic. Okay, so let me kind of talk through this one, then I'll show you the close-up. So bipolar is basically gets the name. It used to be called manic depression. So if you're familiar with it with that name, and basically that was the name given to it because you alternate between manic episodes and depressive episodes. Okay. Now they changed the name to bipolar, I think in the DSM 3 or 4. I would have to look it up. Okay. Because basically what they're saying is that you go between the moods, the poles of the mood spectrum between mania and depression. Okay. Now, most of you are probably educated on depression. What is mania? Okay, because when you look at these, you're gonna be like, oh man, I want to be up here with mania, but you don't. This is actually very, very severe. Number one, your body can't physically take it. You will run out of gas and energy here. You won't run out of energy here, okay, but you will gas yourself out here because a manic is so high. They are so full of energy that they can't sleep generally. You can't even understand what they're saying. They talk so fast. Their brains are racing so fast. Their body processes have sped up. So they can't sleep, they can't sit still, they can't focus on anything. And then also, because of the mania, you slip into psychosis. They lose touch with reality. And in the manic episodes, you actually are generally, what's symptoms of a manic episode are when you do some behaviors that are kind of self-defeating, like you gamble, you engage in risk-taking behaviors because you feel invincible. And yes, there are people that have physically hurt themselves in manic episodes because they were delusional. They thought that they could jump so far, so high or whatever. Or they, there was a case I read about somebody in a manic state thought they watched a video of somebody jumping over a car and they thought, oh, I can do that. It's no problem. They're like, no, you can't, or you can't. So they tried it. They didn't try it full speed or whatever, but he didn't make the car. So he ended up in the emergency room. So, you kind of have a delusional state and the Crash Course talks very well about that and gives some examples of that. Okay. So while this is feeling good, this also, it comes with losing touch with reality. So it is not healthy. Also, it comes with massive physical consequences as well because you run out of gas. Now, between the two, a bipolar patient is going to tell you absolutely they like this one. But generally what happens, and you can see the biology behind it, is once I have a manic phase, I'm going to run out of energy. My body's going to run out of gas. And then I know what's going to happen next. When I've expended all my energy, I've used it all up, what's going to happen? They go down here to depression. Okay. So they don't spend any time here in the middle. They just go from one pole to the next pole. Okay. Thus the name bipolar. Okay. You and I, again, are here. Episodes of low, episodes of high, but we kind of always stabilize right here. They just never stabilize in the middle. They're always living on the poles. Okay. Now, there are different types of bipolar, if you want to look it up in DSM-5. And basically, there's bipolar 1 and 2, and there's also some rapid cycling, which means that they go back and forth really quick. But basically, the difference is on how much, which one's kind of the more main or how much they have the manic episodes, okay? All right? So my symptoms are, I'm going to go between mania and depression. I'm going to alternate, okay? It is biological, okay? Very biological. It is more common in females. And it is psychotic because of the manic side. Okay, so I lose touch with reality. I become delusional when I become manic. Now it feels good, and it can't last for very long, but that's kind of what happens, and that's the benefit with it, or the consequence with it. Okay, a little bit closer here. Okay, so bipolar is a mood disorder, okay, but it's kind of a separate category within the mood disorders. It's kind of it's divided in, again, between the depressive disorders and the bipolar and other related disorders, okay? And then you have the symptoms on that are just alternate between mania and depression, so make sure you understand what both those are. I would include this little mood spectrum diagram down here. I think it kind of helps explain it. I probably should have done it with anxiety as well, and done the anxious versus safe, secure, okay? And then kind of talk about that in there with generalized anxiety disorder, but I didn't. But this is a very common tool. Sorry, I keep moving. So bipolar is biological, all right? Chemical imbalances, brain structure differences. It's actually, there's still a lot of research to be done on the different brains in a bipolar patient, but they are extremely different than you and I's. And it is psychotic because in the mania phase, I lose touch with reality. I basically become delusional. Everything is really grandiose. It's much better than it is. I remember when I was in class, we watched videos of the delusional state of bipolar patients. And most of them are, and the ones we saw generally struggled financially. But yet when you talk to them in their manic phase, they had thousands of dollars in the bank. They had Ferraris, they had all kinds of cars, they lived in a huge mansion, none of which is true. But at that moment in time, because of their state of their brain, they were delusional and they believed it, no matter what evidence you presented. Now, when you met them then again in the depressed stage, everything was really bad. They were really hard off. Life was really a struggle. It was beating them up. They were really struggling. So, you can kind of see the physical toll this would take on your body. You never get stabilized in the normal range. You're always extremely high, burning lots of energy, or you're really, really low. In AP, we actually look at brain scans, PET scans. And what they've done is they've actually measured people's brains in the different states, in the manic state and depression state, because they wanted to see how different they were, and they are massively different. The manic, it looks like the brain is on fire. I mean, every single region is just red or yellow. It's just being used so much. And then down here, you have almost no activity, so little activity, blue and green and nothing. So you go from an extremely active brain. And actually, manics will describe that it feels like their brain is on fire sometimes in a manic episode. It's running so fast that it just feels hot. It feels like it's overheating. And then depression, they don't get hardly anything. It's hard to feel anything when you're depressed. So, okay. So those are the two, okay, to add today. All right. So we have number 10, major depressive disorder. And then we have number 11, which is bipolar. Okay. Both are categorized technically as mood disorders. But they kind of have their different sections within the mood disorder category. So depressive disorders, and then bipolar and other related disorders, okay? Again, also know there are many forms of depression disorders, so there are many types, and there is more than one type of bipolar. We kind of go into that. We go into that detail in AP Psych, but not here. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to say about these two kind of aligns with the Signs of Suicide program that we do at Liberty North High School and in the state of Missouri. Okay. These two disorders are your biggest culprits for suicide attempts and just suicide overall, and with the mental health capacity. I know this year, again, they did a lot of focus on this disorder as far as being very correlated to attempted suicide and suicide, which is very, very true. Because if you were down in that state all the time, life would be very, very tough. It would be very, very hard. But also, I think number two, and as far as mental health correlation to suicide attempts and suicide, is bipolar. Okay, so these two right here are the big mental health issues that are trying to be tackled to kind of prevent suicide and lower suicide attempts. So if you combine these two disorders with your age group, 18 to 25, 10 to 19, that's where you're going to have the most problems. So it's, definitely important for you to know and understand these disorders just generally, so that if you see them in any of your peers, know that, you combine that with the age group, and you've got to watch out, and you've got to make sure that you help people who are displaying the signs of suicide, especially if they have these related factors, things that correlate with that, which would be major depressive disorder or any type of depressive disorder, any type of bipolar disorder. Okay. And especially in your age group, because that's where the stats are spiking. So just kind of as a side note, just kind of, again, relating and following up with signs of suicide. And we talked about that a little bit in class, but I know I think the National Institute of Mental Health really focuses on the 18 to 25 year range, because that's the age that's really spiking with suicide and suicide attempts. And then if you add these two disorders to that, it's very highly correlated. So just be aware of that, in case you ever experience, hopefully not, you ever experience that, or if you have a friend or somebody that experiences that, just be aware of that correlation there. Okay. All right. So if you have not turned in your chapter 6 stuff, make sure you get that done. Okay. There's still some missing grades in the grade book there. So finish that up. You had till the 17th to finish this up. So, get on assignments and finish your project for stress, your vocab assignment for stress, your quiz for stress. And then you still have time to work on this, because we're still making it through the chart. Okay. If you have any questions, email me. Hope you have a good day. Go outside, get some sun.